Shabbat Shalom, my friends. A brief apology for a certain lack of clarity in my voice. I have been brutalized this week by a very nasty strep infection. Meds are helping, along with loads of chicken soup and a secret hot brew based upon apricot nectar. Send me an email. I'll send you the recipe. All will be well soon, but I apologize in advance. So let's begin with the quiz. What happens 7 times every 19 years and changes 12 into 13? Don't shout out your answers. Okay. Yes, the answer is leap year. 7 times out of every 19 years, there is a leap year in the Jewish calendar that brings the Hebrew lunar calendar into close coordination with the solar calendar. So while the Chinese are joyously celebrating this year as the year of the pig, we Jews are celebrating a whole extra month in our calendar, 13 instead of 12. I actually love the way these ancient intercalations work. But the leap month does not come without certain strains. That extra month is called, very creatively, Adar 1. And it is inserted before what is usually simply Adar. But this year, Adar becomes Adar 2, the extra leap month, Adar 1. To fit the workings of the calendar into the realities of Jewish life, the rabbis, as usual, have to work very, very hard. Bunch of problems. I'll just offer a sampling. Purim comes every year in the month of Adar, right? Passover comes the next month, Nisan. So is Purim scheduled this year for Adar 1 or Adar 2? Thinking? Right, that was kind of easy. Adar 2, because there must be a month between Purim and Passover. So Purim comes in Adar 2, poor Adar 1, therefore no holidays. Some rabbis even suggested celebrating twice. They love to be careful, these rabbis. I have to admit to you that's a lot of hamantashen to have Purim twice. But it's also great for those who are dependent upon the annual very important gifts programs for the poor known as Mishloach Manot. Very important tradition in Purim. A much more serious problem arises with yahrzeit, God forbid. If you have a loved one's annual memorial occurring during Adar, is it observed this year during Adar 1 or Adar 2? The rabbis wrestle, a rabbinic task. Yahrzeit should occur at the end of every 12th month, no matter what the name of the month. So that means that it has to be Adar 1. But one should also consider, the rabbis add, fasting on that same date in Adar 2. Rabbis are quite conservative, just to be sure. And please don't take my comments here to be definitive in setting your own yahrzeit dates. Not even Chabad on their website is willing to write an absolutely definitive statement. They end up saying, and I love this, listen carefully, please consult with your rabbi. Customs differ, ask your rabbi. What a great instruction. Do you like the sound of it? Ask the rabbi. Okay, our Sedra is Kitisa, Exodus chapter 30, verse 11 and following. Too much. That's this chapter, this Sedra. Too much, way too much. A Sedra is taken. But Salil, a man of uncommon aesthetic and artistic skill, is appointed to oversee all of the sacred construction. Moses delays in coming down from Mount Sinai as he is in the process of receiving the 2 tablets of stone upon which the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 commandments, are engraved by the finger of God. So a golden calf is created. The people throw a wild and utterly inappropriate celebration called the celebration. In those days, today, we'd call it a rave. Moses shatters the tablets. And then both Moses and God display what could be described as some anger management problems. Moses then goes back up the mountain to receive a second set of tablets, and at the end, Moses' very appearance changes. All that, our Sedra, to be encompassed in less than 10 minutes. So we've got to choose. And I chose this time, let's focus on the very last item, Moses' appearance. And for this discussion, I am very grateful, as is so often the case, for the brilliant analysis of Nechama Leibowitz. So we're at Exodus chapter 34, verse 29 to 34. I just happened to have the text here. I'll read a piece of it. Verse 29, Moses came down from Mount Sinai, and as Moses came down from the mountain bearing the 2 tablets of stone, Moses was not aware that the skin of his face was radiant, since he had spoken with God. Aaron and all the Israelites saw that the skin of Moses' face was radiant. They shrank from coming near him, but Moses called to them. They eventually came close. After all the Israelites came near, Moses instructed them concerning all that the Eternal had imparted to him. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. Very interesting. Whatever was happening, it happened b'dabro ito, when he spoke with him. Now, you know there are no capital letters in Hebrew. So we're blocked at the very beginning from understanding what this text is all about. B'dabro ito, when he spoke with him. Who spoke with whom? Is God speaking with Moses, or is Moses speaking with God? This matters. It's one thing to say that a human being, even a Moses, could address words directly to God. It's something else to say that our text uses dibur, speech, human-type speech, to describe how God communicated with Moses. Bachya ibn Pakura said that the confusion created by using pronouns, he, him, instead of names, was quite intentional. Of course, there's nothing accidental, according to the rabbis, in the Torah text, so as to create a situation of symmetry. Whoa. God spoke to Moses. Moses spoke to God. Just like at the end of Deuteronomy, when Moses was described as knowing God, panim el panim, face to face, there was an intimacy of relationship here which was beyond extraordinary. So it's enough to know that he spoke to him, whoever the he is, whoever the him is. And for us, all the rest is shrouded in mystery, and Bachya would say, and that's the way it was intended to be. So they spoke. And when they spoke, our text says, kikaran or panav. The Plaut commentary renders this as, and the skin of his face was radiant. Other translations would say, instead of radiant, shining or glowing. After such an intimate encounter with God, Moses' face radiated with an extraordinary light. It was so extraordinary that the people were frightened. And eventually Moses had to put a veil on after coming out of one of those one-on-ones with God. You probably already know what I'm going to say next. Jerome, in the Vulgate translation of the Bible, mistranslated koran or, because sometimes the Hebrew keren can mean horn. Sometimes it can mean horn. It doesn't mean horn here. So the Vulgate reads, instead of that Moses' face was shining, that Moses had horns. Now, Michelangelo studied his Bible through the Vulgate, and all the rest is a brilliant piece of art history. Michelangelo's Moses has those horns. And Jews have been described to our own day as those who have horns. Please check. When I was 17 years old and visiting my mother in a hospital, Mom's roommate, literally true, asked me to come over to her bedside so that she could actually see and touch my horns. Poor woman. She was totally shattered. Either way, I knew she didn't like me. Moses shone. The people pulled back. Only then did Moses put on a veil. All of this indicates that Moses had no self-awareness that he was glowing in any unusual fashion. The rabbis were not reluctant to preach their sermons here. Even when leaving a personal interview with God, Moses didn't think too highly of himself. He was a man of modesty, the basic description of Moses. If he saw any unusual light around him, he assumed it was a reflected light, the light of the Torah. Torah's light. Or the light emanating from the tablets that he was carrying. Ner mitzvot are a light, like a light of the soul. Or perhaps little sparks, nitzotzot, that had attached themselves to Moses when he was directly in God's presence. And what about us? We don't get to have those intimate conversations with God. We don't encounter God panim el panim, face to face. And I hope we're not running into too many other people who claim that they do have regular face-to-face conversations with God. But my friends, we are students of Torah. And many of us believe that a living and open encounter with Torah, in fact, is transformative. We are changed when we encounter Torah. Okay, I won't push. We may not radiate, but we cannot help but be changed. And many of us also try to embrace mitzvot, commandments. Maybe you don't try to embrace all of them. Maybe not most of them. Maybe not many of them. Maybe not even some of them. Maybe just a few. But those commandments can make us bearers of a divine light. That we believe. We can become what we strive to do. We can become what we strive to do. Being a light bearer is not a bad goal in these relatively dark times. And finally, what about those nitzotzot, the sparks? Every act of love, every act of recognition of the divine in other, any other, cannot help but leave traces of sparks in our lives. So we radiate and we shine when we meet the divine in Torah, in mitzvah, in the faces of others. That's it for today. I hope that our encounter with Shabbat this week might leave us shining just a little bit brighter, even as we struggle to remember and to understand what this leap year business is all about. Please, it's transformative. Hit share and know that the world does need the light that we carry. Have a great weekend. Shabbat Shalom.